Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first,
yes,
Jeff.
Sorry, I answered that a little quick.
You did. How are
I
you?
was prepared for it.
Well, maybe I won't ask the question now. Oh. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm good.
Good. Today was a very nice day weather-wise here in Michigan. Yesterday was nice too, but I worked yesterday.
Yeah.
So got out the grill, cooked up some burgers, and
sweet.
It's pretty cool. Well, no, it was not sweet. It was very savory.
Oh.
So a couple things since last week. Something funny happened when I was putting up the episode last week. I had gotten the episode edited and uploaded to SoundCloud, and I was in the process of putting it on YouTube when this was like maybe half an hour after I had, the episode had gone live. I realized that somewhere in the editing process, the episode got turned into 70 minutes of silence.
Oh boy.
I wish that had been intentional, but it was not. I think that would have been a hilarious April Fool's joke if I put up the new episode and nothing.
Right, yeah, just complete silence, dead silence.
Right.
Okay, that could be considered better than some of our episodes.
You take that back.
Okay, it's all right.
So last week, one of the questions that we had was, how do you not be a problem player?
Sure.
And I gave a bunch of examples of problem players and so on. There are two things that I realized afterwards, because whenever a new episode comes out, I listen to every episode probably 2 or 3 times before it goes up. And I always remember things that I should have mentioned during the episode that I didn't.
Yeah, of course.
A couple things that I just want to mention because it's odd that I didn't mention them in the previous episode, because I think in preparing for last week's episode, I kind of just lumped them in with other things and didn't bother to give them special mention. I do want to just give quick special mention. Two things that I think a lot of people think are problem players, and people did mention these when I asked online for examples of problem players. Two things that I want to give special mention to are rules lawyers and power gamers or min-maxers. I consider those two kind of the same thing.
Yeah, we did talk about rules lawyers before. So.
Yeah. So in last week's episode, talking about how to examples of a problem player so you can know how to not be a problem player. I didn't mention rules lawyers or power gamers because I was lumping those in with a difference of expectation. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, they think, power gamers are definitely problem players, or rules lawyers are definitely problem players. I think that is an incorrect attitude to have. Rules lawyers and power gamers are only a problem when it's a different attitude than the rest of the group has.
Sure.
I have played with plenty of groups where I've made a character all about role-playing, because, people would give me examples. We're like, you shouldn't be a role player, ROLL player. You should be an ROLE player.
Right.
And, again, that's fine, but there have been many times, that's not a universal problem, because there have been many times I've joined a group, I've made a character all about role-playing, and then I get there ready to role-play, and the group as a whole is just like, okay, let's roll initiative. All right, I attack. What are we fighting on? I attack. Awesome. It's a great session. Let's keep going. And that's not a problem. If that's what your group wants, then all the power to you. So I think it would be disingenuous to say that if you are a power gamer, you are a problem player. Because that's not true. Same with rules lawyers. Nobody ever complains about a DM being a rules lawyer.
Sure. Because
a rules lawyer is only a problem when the player has a different attitude about the rules than the DM does.
Sure, yeah.
So, I just wanted to give a quick little mention about those two things because I feel like it was a notable absence from the discussion. Although, I just wanted to make clear that I was lumping those in with a difference of expectation.
Gotcha.
So, neither of those is inherently bad. You just got to make sure that your goals with the game are the same as the group's. So, I guess let's get into the episode.
Okay. Jeff,
I want you to roll a d20.
Okay.
So I don't have my dice again, but click on this online dice roller. Oh. Okay. You got a 9.
Oh.
You got a 9 on your athletics check.
Okay.
You are currently being chased by a dragon.
Oh,
I probably should have mentioned that ahead of time.
Shoot.
But
God.
This dragon is chasing you, and you see like there's a hole in the wall that you can jump and you can pull yourself through. However, you didn't roll high enough.
Uh-oh.
So unfortunately, you have died. But you died right next to the dragon's horde. All right, so our item today was actually a submission from a listener, Thomas, through email. And his item that he submitted is a cloak. It is called Gunjar, the Magic Cloak. So let me tell you a little bit about this. This item is a magic cloak that when wearing Gunjar, you can pull the hood over your head to cause yourself to become invisible. While you're invisible, anything you're carrying and wearing is invisible with you. You become visible when you stop wearing the hood. Pulling the hood up or down requires an action. And then in increments of 1 minute, you can wear the cloak and you can be invisible for up to 2 hours. After 2 hours, you stop being invisible. The invisibility function ceases. And for every uninterrupted period of 12 hours, the 1 hour comes back. So if you don't use it for 12 hours, you get back an hour. Okay. Up to the maximum of 2 hours. In addition to the invisibility, Gunjar the Cloak gives you protection. It functions like a cloak of protection. You get a +1 to AC and all saving throws while you wear Gunjar. Here's the thing, though. Gunjar is a sentient magic item.
Okay.
So while you're wearing Gunjar, he has stats. He's got 15 intelligence, 15 wisdom, 10 charisma. He also has a dexterity score. Apparently, he can move.
Oh,
like if you die, he can climb off of you and try to get away.
You try to find somebody else to wear him.
Right. So while you're wearing this cloak can talk. Mm-hmm. I'll get a little bit more to that in just a minute. He can also speak telepathically to the wearer. However, he has to be convinced to do so.
Huh.
Now, Gunjar is true neutral, only wanting to be liked and to be useful. His creator was attempting to combine a cloak of invisibility and a cloak of protection and accidentally granted it sentience. Well, we've all been there. Don't worry.
Right.
Now,
it's a common mistake.
Right. The thing, though, going with the theme of a lot of the items submitted to this podcast being kind of cursed items.
Right.
This item speaks like Jar Jar Binks from Star Wars Episode 1.
All right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so you have a cloak with some awesome abilities.
Sure.
But it talks like Jar Jar, and it talks a lot.
Okay, so it has to be convinced
to speak telepathically.
Because it'd rather just talk aloud.
Exactly. And what use is a cloak of invisibility that won't stop talking like Jar Jar?
Does it specifically say Jar Jar Binks?
Yeah, and the name is Gunjar.
Sure, okay.
So
Gunjar.
Yeah.
Gunjar the sentient cloak.
Yes. So where to begin with this? I think it's interesting because mechanically this is actually much better than like the Ring of Invisibility from 5th edition D&D, because this does not have the clause about becoming visible when you attack.
Okay, so you just can stay invisible for 2 hours.
For 2 hours, yeah, and that's effectively greater invincibility unless the creator, unless the guy who sent this into us meant otherwise. So it's very, very, very powerful.
Now he does have the dexterity bonus, or does it have the dexterity ability? So if it can indeed move, it could probably remove the hood from you.
Oh snap! It probably could.
Like if you're trying to sneak around and be invisible, and it's trying to talk to you, and you're like, no, shut up, and it's like, well, fine, I'm just gonna take the hood off.
And I'm looking over the notes that he sent in, and actually says Gunjar will make his own stealth check every time the wearer makes a stealth check. If he fails, he'll say something or make some noise that the wearer can attempt to stifle by making a charisma check. So it's kind of like in Order of the Stick when they're all sneaking and they're like, okay, all right, I got 15. All right, I got an 18. And then Alan yells, I got a 4. Did you guys hear me? I got a 4. So Gunjar apparently does something similar where if you're sneaking, he'll try to sneak, but if he fails, that means that he said something.
Right. So, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, does it have to be Jar Jar Binks? I guess it doesn't. I mean,
well, no, I think it does, Jeff.
Dang it!
It's in the rules.
No, but this is a cool idea, though. I mean, I wouldn't personally use the Jar Jar Binks thing, but I mean, like, something very similar. Like, yeah, this is a sentient cloak that, like, talks and just wants to be helpful, but it's very, energetic and excitable that, maybe, like, even though he grants you invisibility, like, is a little too chatty.
Sure.
And you have to find ways to convince him to be quiet. Like, it's like, oh, if you're quiet for the next hour, I'll get you I'll iron you or something. I don't know.
You iron Misa? Yeah. So,
what would a cloak want in life?
That's a good question.
Like, what's a treat for a cloak?
Do they like being hung up in a closet, or is that like the worst torture to them?
Yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah, probably being hung up in the closet. Yeah, if he wants to be worn and be helpful, that's probably his least favorite thing.
Do they like being washed? And if so, I imagine that they would probably enjoy being hung out on the line, so that they can be out in the sun, the wind can blow.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm not a cloak, so I don't know, but I think that would probably be...
What are the wants and needs of a cloak?
That would probably be like a great time for them. The guy that sent this in, he mentioned that he's going to be using this in an upcoming... in his group, in an upcoming adventure, and the way that it's going to be given to the players is somebody's going to run up to them on the street, shove it in their hands, and be like, please take this from me, and then run away. Kind of similar, a long time ago I made, I really like intelligent items.
Yeah.
When I was running a 3.5 game a long time ago, Jay and Chris were in this game, and I was going to be running an adventure where I wanted to give the players a bunch of treasure, but I thought it would be cool, instead of giving them just a bunch of money, if they got a whole bunch of magic items. And so I randomly generated like 20 or 30 magic items of varying power levels. It was actually a lot of fun. And it was 100% random generation. So I rolled on this chart, I rolled on that chart, and so on. And then in 3.5, there was a little clause that, like, I think it was like 1% of all magic items end up intelligent. Not intentionally, just bam, it just happens.
Oh, it just happened in the creation of magic items.
Exactly.
It just can sometimes happen.
And I mean, I'm sure they didn't really give rules for this, but I'm sure that if a player wanted to make an intelligent item, they could. But anyway, so I went down the list of all these items. I rolled, is this item intelligent? No, it's not. Is this one? No. But then it did result in one intelligent magic item. And then I rolled on what its alignment was. I rolled on what its abilities were. And it just came out the most ridiculous, absurd item ever. But I gave it to Jay. Well, I gave it to the party, and Jay really took a liking to it.
Okay.
And I even had it show up in a later campaign again for Jay's character. And this was the Age of Worms campaign. So it did show up again in the Age of Worms campaign. But the item in question was a gauntlet of rust.
Oh, yeah.
That was lawful good. And it had the ability to, I think it could like heal 3 times a day. Not the spell heal, but like cure moderate wounds or something.
Right. Yeah.
And it could like create a major illusion once per day or something. And it was a gauntlet of rust, so it also had whatever abilities a gauntlet of rust had. And so because it was lawful good, I named it Iron Claw, and I decided that it has this like very haughty voice. And it's always looking for, like, the most righteous of wielders. So, like, when they find it, it's like, who goes there? Are you righteous enough for Iron Claw? And Jay tends to play lawful good or neutral good characters. So, it totally meshed well with his character.
Sure.
And when I gave it to you guys in the Age of Worms campaign, I was giving each of you a specific magic item designed specifically for your character, which I would love to get into in a future episode. But the item that I gave for Jay, I had you guys walk into this room, and there was what was clearly a soundproof box.
Oh, yeah.
And so Jay went and he opened it up. It was like a crate. He opened it up. It had like all this soundproofing material in there. And then he starts rifling through what's the insulation. And then he hears, "Are you righteous?" And so that was a good time. But yeah, so I think if you're going to give an intelligent item to your players that they didn't specifically create, I think the best thing you can do is to give it a ridiculous personality that clashes with the players, but has really good abilities.
Right, yeah.
Because then the players want to use it, but then to use it, they have to deal with the ridiculous personality.
Yeah, you gotta tempt them with something like being able to heal, and like I think it acts on its own turn. Like it can.
I'm not sure what the 5th edition rules are, but in 3.5, it did have its own actions, which it could use its abilities on its actions or your actions.
Because I know by the end of that campaign, Steve had all of his equipment was intelligent in some way.
Yes. And I really liked that. I was talking with Steve recently about this, and what he did was, we won't get too far into this, but he had a whole bunch of magic items, and what he did was he basically condensed them all into like 3 or 4 super magic items. Mm-hmm. And then each of those magic items had a personality in keeping with what its abilities were.
Right.
And so he had it was like an animated shield that could also turn into wings or something. And
I think it had to do with his... did it have to do with the black dragon?
It was made of the black dragon's scales. Yeah.
Okay.
And the item could also turn into like a cat or something. So he had like a cat familiar almost that had the personality of this dragon.
Yeah.
But it could turn into, like his shield and his wings and whatnot. And then like he had his axe that was intelligent but was like very, very gluttonous.
Yeah, yeah.
And that had its own slew of issues that came up as the campaign got on.
Right.
But yeah. So I think that was really cool because each one had a very strong personality. Mm-hmm. And I think that was all him. That was all stuff he came up with. So that was really cool.
So yeah, intelligent items can always have a great potential for being pretty fun.
Yeah.
And a cloak that talks like Jar Jar Binks.
Yes. There was one time in the first campaign I ever ran, at the end of an adventure, I think it was just Jay and Steve. The players had they just beat some really tough battle, and then I was like, okay, hey guys, roll initiative. And they're like, well, what for? The battle's over. I was like, no, just roll initiative. So they did, and I was like, okay, guys. Jar Jar just showed up. They're like, okay, bam, I hit him with fireball. I use all my attacks on him. And it was fun. That's my whole story.
Yeah, so yeah, if you ever need some sort of backup encounter.
Yes.
Jar Jar Binks.
All right, so do you want to go ahead and get into some questions?
Sure, yeah, let's get it going.
All right.
Our first question comes from Magispit from Paizo. Are there any 5th edition rules that don't exist that you think that should exist?
Okay. Now, I just want to say one thing in case Magispit is listening. He didn't specifically submit this question. This was kind of an offshoot of a question that he submitted that we did a few weeks ago. We did, what are some rules as written that you don't like? And kind of as a progression of that, I decided to also cover, are there any rules that don't exist that you think should exist? Mm-hmm. Now, going with 5th edition, one thing that I think is really odd that it isn't in the books is whether or not you can retry a skill check. Now, in 3rd edition and 3.5, in the skills entry in the player's handbook, they would say, what the skill's called, what ability score it uses, the typical DCs, and then there would always be an entry for whether or not you could retry that skill. Now, for some skills, the answer was yes. If you are making a search check, for example, yeah, you can just keep trying. In fact, there was a rule specifically I don't know if it was specifically for search, but it was almost 100% used for search, called the Take 20 rule, that was all about you don't have a time restraint. If there isn't consequence for failure, you can just keep retrying a given skill until you get a 20. So it takes 20 times as long. So you can't do it if there's time restraints, because if it takes 1 round to do, now it takes 2 minutes or 20 rounds. But it was just an easy way instead of saying, well, I just try and try and try, the DM just says, okay, you take 20 and then this happens. Mm-hmm. So certain skills like search, in general, yes, you could always retry it. Some skills, no, you couldn't. If you were bluffing somebody, you can't just be like, let me try that again.
Right, yeah.
But then some skills you could sometimes retry and you couldn't sometimes retry. And it would say that in the skill description. It would say yes, it would say no, it would say maybe, and then give conditions. Like if you're trying to jump across a pit, obviously you can't retry if you fall in and die.
Sure.
But if you're trying to jump up and grab something that's hanging from the ceiling, there's no reason why you can't retry.
Yeah, unless it's moving or something like that. It's not really going anywhere. You just missed it the first time.
Right. Now, in 5th edition, the retry entry is notably absent from the skills section. And the Take 20 rule is similarly nowhere to be found. Now, with 5th edition, I keep having difficulties with it because I'm so familiar with 3.5 that I just assume that a 3.5 rule is still a rule. And then when it's not in the book, I don't always think, that means that it doesn't exist anymore. Because, they can't put every rule that is not in the game into the book, because then the book would be, 1 billion pages long.
Right.
So it's difficult to know whether something is specifically taken out of the game,
right? Yeah.
Or if I just glossed over it, or if I just didn't see it, or if it's implied to be a rule but not actually a rule.
Right. Yeah.
And so a few weeks ago, it was really strange to me when I was on the 5th edition Facebook group, and somebody was asking, "Hey, can you retry on a search check if you fail?" And I was about to be like, "Oh yeah, of course, just look at the take 20 rule. That's what that's for." But then I looked in the book and there was no take 20 rule. And I did a Google search and there is no take 20 rule in 5th edition D&D. And then I looked at all the responses, because every freaking question on this Facebook group has 300 responses.
Sure.
And they're all like, no, you can't. And like, that's so weird to me. I understand, because I asked about this and a lot of people said, well, the goal here is for the DM to adjudicate stuff. So like if you can retry, the DM should tell you can retry. And if you can't retry, then the DM will tell you no.
Yeah.
And I can understand that.
Yeah, I get that.
But
it doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. And I just think they could have put one simple sentence at the beginning of the skill section, or even in the DMG. It's not even in the DMG. It's just one little sentence that says your players may be able to retry skill checks. It's up to you as a DM.
Sure.
But it doesn't say that. Now, there's a lot of rules that are in the player's handbook that don't necessarily need to be there. Now, again, they can't put everything that could ever come up into a game into the book, because then, like I said, the book would be a billion miles long. But there are rules in the player's handbook for how long it takes to put on and take off armor.
Right.
Despite the fact that in 5th edition, there are no penalties to always being in armor.
Okay.
It's up to the,
it doesn't exhaust you or fatigue you
not
anymore.
It did in 3rd edition. Doesn't anymore. If the DM wants to institute that, he can. Just because there isn't a rule doesn't mean the DM can't put in a rule. But that rule is in the book, despite the fact that I would say most groups will never be in a situation where the amount of time it takes to put on or take off armor is going to be an issue. In my 15 years of gaming, I don't think I have ever encountered a situation where that was important.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once. Maybe in one time in 15 years. I feel like every single group, at least once, is going to reach a point where one of the players says, well, can I retry this skill?
Right.
If it's a simple thing like, well, when this shows up, the DM makes the call. Why doesn't it say that?
I don't know.
If every group is going to encounter this at some point, why not just put one sentence in there? There are charts and charts of stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be there. There are probably at least a dozen spells in the player's handbook that most groups will never use. But they're still there. They're still taking up that prime real estate in the book. Why couldn't they have just put one sentence saying the DM is in charge of this? If it's possible, it's up to him. Now, of course, you can say, "Oh, well, that's implied," whatever. But like, why? Who would suffer from having that statement in there?
Well, and I mean, and like you said, the responses to the question on Facebook, like people were just saying flat out no. And if that many people were saying flat out no, then that many people didn't realize it's implied that it's up to the DM, because they would have just said, "Oh, it's up to the DM."
Exactly. I'm all for the DM being the arbiter of stuff. Just my thing is, I think that they should try a little bit harder to make different groups have similar games. I mean, I guess that was kind of a design choice. I was watching a video on YouTube a while ago about 4th edition and why 4th edition turned out the way it did. And the reason from what this guy was saying was that in 4th edition, they wanted every single group to be able to take their character from one campaign and play that exact same character in another campaign with no balance issues. Whether they succeeded or not, that's up for the players to decide. But I think that's a really cool attitude. And so when that is clearly not their attitude in this edition, I think that's, I don't know. I think the game suffers for it a little bit. I'm not saying this edition is bad. I think overall this is probably the best edition. Sure. But I just think like certain things, if something is going to come up in a game, they should at least have just one sentence that's like, this is up to the DM.
Yeah, sure.
So that's one thing.
Even there being like a symbol.
There you go.
A symbol that just like a symbol that they put in there when it like next to a rule or a category of rules.
A symbol and a single footnote is all it would have taken.
Yeah,
to be like
the DM's discretion. It's like a little star or asterisk sort of thing.
Exactly. Because like if I'm an experienced DM, I'm already going to house rule whatever they give me anyway if I see fit.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really use the attitude of like, oh, well, that's all going to be up to the DM. Because if I'm a new DM and the book doesn't say whether or not you can retry something, sometimes I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead and retry it. And it's going to have disastrous results. Other times I'm going to say, no, you can't retry it. And that is also going to have disastrous results. And I'm going to feel guilty. I'm going to feel responsible because I made a judgment call when the book very clearly could have just had a symbol or one sentence that says whether it's the case or not.
Right.
I just think it's a weird thing to not have in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. It is odd.
Anyway, so like I think that's one thing that should have been in there, whether or not you can retry skills. Now, sorry, one more thing about this. With it being completely up to the DM, I think that's actually really neat because one person said, and they pointed me to a part in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I believe, where it says that if there isn't consequence for failure, don't even bother having the player roll. And that blew my mind. Because yeah, there will be times where I'm DMing and one of the players is like, oh, can I jump up and grab that thing? Or like, can I break this door down? And there isn't a time constraint.
Right.
And there's nobody around. So it's not like making a bunch of noise is going to be a problem. Yet I'll still have the player roll and they might have to do it 2 or 3 times, but eventually they do it. If that's the case, why bother having them roll?
Sure.
And I think that is really cool. But again, just in the player's handbook, just one little thing saying whether or not you can retry skills, I think would have gone so much farther than putting in an entire chart about donning and removing armor. Anyway, so retries on skills is one thing that I think should exist that doesn't. Number 2, guidelines for magic item costs and character wealth and power. There's a little bit of rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide about if you want to buy a magic item, there's a little tiny bit of guidelines in there and like sort of a little bit about how many magic items players should have, but like magic items vary in power. And like when it's like how much should magic items cost, they take a huge group of magic items all with wildly different abilities, and those are all the same price. And then this next tier, all rare magic items are the same price, quote unquote. All very rare magic items are the same price, and so on and so on. And like, I think that that's a tiny little Band-Aid for a really, really big wound. Because again, if I'm an experienced DM, I'll kind of have an idea of how to adjudicate that. Not only that, but like when the edition first came out and everybody was learning it, as an experienced DM, I at least know how to make up for if I made a bad adjudication. If I gave a player a magic item that they shouldn't have had yet, or like if I gave them some money and then they use that money to buy magic items at the prices that I set, then if I made a bad judgment, I know how to fix that. But even if I do know how to fix that, it's going to take a long time, possibly a couple campaigns, to learn just how I should adjudicate player magic item progression and so on.
Right.
I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. That's understood. But eventually I'm going to get it after lots of trial and error. Would it have killed them to save me half of that trial and error time? We're talking like a year's worth of trial and error time to just put a little bit more guidelines for how much magic items should cost and so on. Like, I know that in 3rd edition that got abused a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Players, especially with inexperienced DMs, players would be like, oh, well, the guidelines say I can make a magic item that can do this. And the DM scratches his head. Okay, well, I guess that that magic item that works only for you should cost less. I guess.
Yeah. Forgot about that.
So, I mean, I understand there's a lot of room for abuse when you put in a chart, but I would say far more people got good use out of those charts than bad use. And
Sure.
Bad use is so easy to fix. You just say, no, you can't have that. Or no, that's more expensive. On a side note, I think that a lot of people have the wrong attitude on how that restriction works. Like the thing where like, oh, it only works for me, so it costs less. I think that there is a way to frame that so that it makes sense. Most people don't realize that. Anyway, this is a side tangent I don't need to be on. So I think that they could have put just a little bit more work into giving guidelines for magic item costs and so on, And I think with the way that 5th edition was set up so that the DM is in control of so much, it would have been so easy to fix if that got abused. So like, why not help out all of the new DMs that have no clue what they're doing?
Sure.
That have no basis for how common to make magic items or for how much money to give their players and how to let them buy magic items with those. Mm-hmm. I just think so many people could have benefited from a little bit more work in that regard. And it's just not there.
Yeah.
And so like, again, experienced DMs are already going to know how to handle it, and they're already going to house rule if something they don't like. So why not help out the new players and the new DMs?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell when you're new at the game, like what's an overpowered magical item and what's too much gold to be giving your players.
Yeah.
Like I remember like very early on playing the game and like trying to dabble in DMing a little bit. And just kind of be like throwing magical items like like, oh, here's this cool magical sword, here's this and that, and like just kind of throwing them out there because they're fun. Magical items are fun. It's
like my favorite part of the game.
Yeah, it's like it's a good time. So it's hard not to it's hard not to give your players something a little too overpowered and then be like, oh yeah, somebody comes in the night and steals it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Roll your eyes. Whatever.
It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take that back. Sorry.
Sure.
You were having fun.
Right. And then the last thing that I want to say, a rule that I think should exist, and this is actually kind of weird for me to say that I think it should exist, is called shots. I generally don't like the idea of called shots. Whenever a new player brings up called shots, I'm always like, oh, come on, seriously, because I think that with how abstract D&D's combat is, called shots don't necessarily work. Mm. And I think that, it's assumed that the player is already trying to, cut off the villain's arm or cut his head off or stab him in the eye or whatever. Like all those things that if there was an easier way to kill the villain or make the villain completely inconsequential in one attack, if there was an easier way to do it, everybody would be doing that every time. Mm-hmm. So it's already assumed that you're trying to aim for a vital area. And that's why you have to roll a higher number in order to hit, and that's what critical hits are, and so on. Yeah. So in general, whenever somebody doesn't get that, and they're like, "Oh no, I wanna shoot him in the head. I don't want to shoot him in the chest. I want to shoot him in the head." Like like, okay, yeah, I understand you want to shoot him in the head. That's what you're doing. That being said, so many people want there to be a called shots system. Would it kill them to institute one?
Right.
Now, I haven't really been keeping up with like Unearthed Arcana in this edition. Maybe there is a called shot system that they've come up with. Maybe they have spent hours and hours and hours trying to come up with a called shot system and it just hasn't worked. And that's why they've never done it.
They're just afraid it's going to turn into grappling.
Yeah, you said the magic word.
I mean, it could just be could be the best way they can come up with is a
really complicated system.
It's just too complicated. It's just going to make combat that much more time consuming.
Yeah. I think I remember in 3.5 there was a book or a series called Arcana Unearthed, not Unearthed Arcana.
Oh yeah.
What are you doing, wizards? But anyway, and in that, I think there were rules on called shots, but it was in order to blind someone, you had to take like a -20 to your attack roll.
Right.
And so a lot of the things ended up being just so inefficient or ineffective that like you were better off not trying. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there needs to be something official after this many years, because if they just put out something, even if it's a really bad option, there's something that I can point new players to instead of having to constantly go into an explanation of the abstract system and so on.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I can picture a new player being like, oh yeah, can I like stab him in the leg and make him fall down? It's like, yes and no, you can, but here's how you can maybe do it. And here's what you're really supposed to be doing. And having to go into that with a new player can sometimes turn the player off, because it's supposed to be a game where you do whatever you want kind of thing. Like,
and one thing that I'm not really in a game now. I haven't actually run a game aside from that little one shot I did at the library last week.
Sure.
I haven't really run a game in almost a year, maybe like 6 months or so.
Sure.
And I think that when I do start running a game again, I do want to try a lot harder to encourage that sort of thinking from players. Now, of course, I don't want players to, if they find an easy way to do something powerful, I don't want them to make that their bread and butter. For example, in a a game I was playing a long time ago, Jay was playing a character where he had this, it was a non-damaging spell that just like pushed everybody back. And I don't remember who was DMing, but he had an idea to drop a bag of caltrops on himself and then do that so that he would like shoot the caltrops in every direction. And whoever was DMing at the time allowed it, and they made it really effective. And so that was Jay's standard attack. Every round, okay, I drop another bag of caltrops on myself. Bam. I did a ton of damage to everybody with no save. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, somebody's made a mistake here.
Sure.
So I wouldn't want players to like every round be like, oh man, I want to stab him in the leg. But I want to become much more accepting of ideas. Like if a player does want to try something like, oh, I want to stab him in the leg, maybe give that guy a small penalty to his speed.
Right.
You know? So I want to say yes more. I've come leaps and bounds since I first started DMing in that regard, but I still have room to grow.
Sure.
So, you know, if I was running a game and a player said, okay, I want to cut this guy's arm off or something, I think nowadays I would try to find some quick and easy way to make that work.
Right. I mean, it's difficult because you got to think about that in the reverse of like, you know, like, okay, is an enemy going to be trying to blind you or cut your arm off? And then if he manages to do it, then your character is handicapped for a good portion, if not the rest of the campaign, depending on how much magic you have access to.
Yeah. Like I want to encourage the players to do things that they, that aren't just I rolled a hit, but I want to run an internally consistent game as well, and so I don't want the players to every round be maiming or hampering
just
the bad guys,
limbs everywhere,
and then the bad guys never do the same to them.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, you got to strike a delicate balance with that. But like I've been listening to a lot of actual play podcasts, and in those, I always think it's so cool when the DM will just give some sort of a small little benefit because the player like said a specific attack they're doing instead of just an attack.
Yeah, and it could be like if. It's not like, oh, can I stab his eye out? It's like, oh, I aim for his eye, and then you manage to hit and deal a good amount of damage. And so maybe the DM will be like, good job, he's dazed for a round.
Or like he has disadvantage on his next attack roll or something.
Yeah.
But then the rules lawyer in me is like, okay, well, now what happens if the players want to do that again next round? And they all try to do that every round. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It just makes combat more complicated.
Right. If there's one thing combat is lacking, it's complexity. Am I right? So, all right. So I think that'll do it for this question.
Okay. Next question comes from Kai on Reddit, and she asks, how far should I take a grudge? And
she specifies an in-character grudge.
In-character grudge. Okay.
Yeah. So I would say only as far as you think the story will benefit from it, and only so far as it would be consistent with your character.
Yeah.
Because you got to think, if you're an adventurer and let's say one of the other party members has angered you in some way and your character has a grudge against them, you got to remember your character is relying on them for survival. Like you're going to be fighting alongside them. You probably wouldn't fight alongside somebody that you didn't trust, So if your grudge has to do with, I can't trust this person, well, that's going to change the party dynamic. So if it wouldn't make sense for your character to, number one, hold that grudge, and number two, continue adventuring with that person,
right,
one of those things has got to change.
Yeah. If it comes to the point where you feel like your character would leave the party, maybe you need to dial it back.
Yeah. Or just find some way to resolve that grudge.
Right.
When I was playing the Mountain Witch a long time ago, my character had the revenge card, and so one of the other players, that was Jay's girlfriend Meg, I decided that my character wanted to take revenge on her because she, killed my master or something.
Right.
And by the end of the adventure, we had fought together to kill the Mountain Witch. We were successful, and I was like, I think we can put this behind us. You have wronged me, but you have redeemed yourself in my eyes. Let's be friends. I hold out my hand. She says, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to use this backstab mechanic. You're dead. Now I have all the riches. Ha ha ha. I win. So,
I mean, maybe not go that last step.
Well,
but because you're in this adventure with this person. You're spending a lot of time like fighting alongside with them. You might find a way to reconcile it.
Yeah, and that can definitely lead to some interesting role playing. I've said in the past, I'll say it again, that we are all about inter-party conflict.
Right.
Ding. So if if you can find a way to make some interesting story out of this grudge that you're holding, then all the power to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you're getting to a point where it's not adding to the story anymore, and or it is not consistent for your character to keep fighting alongside this person that they hate, then you need to probably find some way to resolve it.
Right.
Or, come up with some other option, whatever. There's always something you can do. So if it ever stops being an interesting part of the game, that's when you should not take it any further.
Yeah. It's pretty general, but yeah, if it stops being fun.
Yeah.
Dial it back. If it stops
yeah.
being fun, dial it back and put it on the back burner, and you can bring it up again if it feels like it'll be interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I've always thought that it would be so cool if there were more stories where more like fiction, more movies and games and so on, where two of the people hate each other, but they still work together. I remember, have you ever seen Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief? Such a mouthful.
Oh my goodness. Wait.
And I'm talking about the movie. Have you seen the movie or read the books of the Percy Jackson series?
Shoot. No, I haven't read the books, but I feel like I've seen that movie.
The books are very, very good, albeit they're a pretty low reading level, but they are surprisingly mature and surprisingly well written, despite having a very, very easy style of writing. Like anybody from any age could read this book and be able to, it's so easy and quick to read, yet it gets quite deep and interesting as it goes.
Is that the movie with Robert De Niro?
No.
What movie am I thinking of? Where he's like a pirate in the sky, and he catches lightning in a net.
I don't know.
What movie is that?
I don't know, but I want to watch this.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like Robert De Niro, and he's like a cross-dresser or something. He's a cross-dressing pirate with an airship that casts nets that catches lightning.
Are you sure it was a movie?
Yeah.
Are you sure it wasn't nothing?
No, this is a movie. I cannot remember what this movie is.
I don't know. I'll have to... I don't know. If you think of it, let me know. I'll put it in the show notes.
Jeez.
Well, anyway, so
what you said, Lightning Thief, and that's all I could think of was Robert De Niro.
It's like Harry Potter, but with Greek gods instead of wizards. And one of the main character, Percy Jackson, is accused of stealing Zeus's most powerful lightning bolt.
Gotcha. Okay, I haven't read the books.
Okay.
Have not seen the movie.
The movies, there's a movie, the first book and the second book. They are both very, very bad.
Okay.
The director of the first movie was very vocal in saying he did not and will never read the book.
Well, that's great.
The books are about 12-year-olds or something. And the movie, the character's 18 or something. Sure. They just bumped everybody's age up a whole bunch of years.
It's easier for casting,
I guess. And
I don't know.
Anyway, they're so sloppy. I'm not here to criticize it. Okay. But my point is, in the first movie, there's a point where the main character and then his female counterpart meet for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
The main character is a son of Poseidon.
Mm. The
other character, the girl, is the daughter of Athena.
Mm.
And Annabeth, Percy and Annabeth are the two characters. And Annabeth, when they find out that Percy is the son of Poseidon, she mentions that her mother and his father hate each other because Poseidon, I don't know, slept with some woman in Poseidon or in Athena's temple or something, blah, 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 whatever, Medusa. Anyway. And
yada, 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 Medusa.
And so Percy asks, well, what does that mean about us? And she says, well, that means we're either going to love each other or we're going to hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking to myself, man, how awesome would that be if by the end of the movie, they hate each other? Because everybody knows when they say that, everybody knows they're going to be in love by the end of the movie.
Right. Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. It's a tale as old as time. Blah. But how interesting would that be if the two main characters who had to fight together hated each other?
Sure.
I can only think of one piece of fiction that does this well.
What's that?
Dragon Ball Z. By the end of Dragon Ball Z, Vegeta still hates Goku.
Sure.
They've gotten to a point where...
what point is the end of Dragon Ball Z for you?
The end of the Buu series. Dragon Ball Z.
So, okay.
Not Dragon Ball GT, not
Super.
I haven't watched Super. But there is the two of them are constantly fighting. They're fighting the same foe, but they are constantly trying to prove who is better. Spoiler alert, Goku is always better, and every time they have a contest, Goku ends up winning. And there is finally a point near the end where Vegeta has to admit, okay, Goku, I get it. You're stronger than me. You're always going to be stronger than me. I just have to live with that. But he still doesn't like him.
Right.
There is never a point where Vegeta is friends with Goku. They work together. They cooperate. They get over what keeps them from being able to cooperate fairly quickly. There's still a lot of backstabbing that happens, mainly from Vegeta. But there is never a point where the two are friends. Another example of something that I think could have been so cool, but just missed the mark a little bit, Sky High. The documentary about the school of superpowered children, Sky High. The premise of a big part of the story of that is that the main character, his parents...
It's because of his shirt, isn't it?
That's a small part of it. Don't think about how awesome his shirt is. But one of the main characters in that is like explicitly a villain. He's like the son of a supervillain and a superhero or something. And like, he's like the bad guy, and they fight each other a lot. But then at the end, they have to work together to stop the bigger bad.
Right.
But then there's like explicitly a point at the end of the movie where the main character, he's doing like his little voiceover right before the credits roll, where he's like, blah, blah, my arch enemy became my best friend. And it's like, no, why does he have to be your best friend?
Right.
Why can't he still hate your guts? But if it means destroying the world, he's going to work with you.
Right. I mean, going back to the Dragon Ball example, it's like they're still enemies, rivals, whatever, but they become stronger because of it. Like, yeah, you know, certain people gain strength in their friendships. Those two gain strength in their rivalry.
Exactly.
Trying to, outsmart or
to
train
outdo each other.
Yeah.
Vegeta would not have become nearly as powerful as he did ever if he wasn't constantly trying to be better than Goku. That is his main driving force, and that's the reason that they're able to succeed as much as they do, because he has spent so much time trying to one up Goku. So yeah, I think I think that's a really interesting dynamic that not enough writers make use of. So many writers and DMs, I'm sure, fall into the easier trope of, well, we hated each other, we worked together, now we're best buds, we'll link arms and skip off into the sunset together.
Right. Oh, another thing about Vegeta and Goku, they're Team 4-Star, the guys who did the parody. They did like a little they did a couple like little clips from Dragon Ball Super where they like redubbed it, and there's a part where like Vegeta's standing all mad, or like he's just kind of sitting off to the side all mad, and like Goku's like talking to him, and like so they in the show basically Goku hires this bounty hunter to kill himself, like
Goku hires a bounty hunter to kill Goku.
Yes. And it's because this bounty hunter is like from this other universe, and he's so far the strongest like non-god that Goku has fought. And so he wants to fight him again. Yeah. So he puts out a hit on himself so that he can fight him. And then so this little clip that Team 4-Star did was basically like Vegeta being mad and jealous because it's like being very mad and jealous because like. It's like, wait, so this isn't about us anymore? You went and got this guy instead? Like, what am I supposed to be? Like, so I don't know. I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
Like Vegeta gets all jealous, and like they make it out to like seem like it's it's a relationship between the two. Yeah. It's like, am I not good enough for you? Like,
sure. Sorry. One more thing about Goku and Vegeta. There's a point near the end of the Buu saga where Goku and Vegeta end up having to fuse themselves together into one person to become more powerful enough to beat the bad guy, Majin Buu. And so they put on these magic earrings that cause them to fuse into one person. And they only do that as a last resort, right? Because Buu is just way too powerful. And then through some goofy nonsense circumstance, they end up getting separated again. Yeah. And there is even a point, if I'm not mistaken, where they are given another pair of those earrings. It's like the last pair of those earrings that exist in the universe to fuse again. to be powerful enough to beat Boo for good.
Right.
And they both destroy the earrings because despite working together, they do not want to be that close to each other once again.
Right.
And I just think that is something I feel like you would not see that in other fiction. In other fiction, it would be the two guys that used to hate each other. They're like, yeah, man, let's work together.
Right.
Let's beat this bad guy. But no, they're like, no, once was enough.
Yeah.
We don't like each other.
Yeah. Because
let's get rid of this.
It's definitely, Vegeta definitely doesn't want to do it because he just hates Goku and just doesn't want to be a part of him.
Yeah.
I think Goku does it more because he likes to be strong on his own, like in his own way. Like he likes to be the reason that he's strong. Like he doesn't want help from anybody else to become the strongest.
Yeah. So I think those are two interesting characters. And I think that's an example of like that grudge that Vegeta held against Goku for literally the entire series added to the story and was consistent in his character. Mm-hmm. So if you can pull off something like that in a game, all the power to you. Do it. But again, just if it ever stops adding to the game, just find some way to resolve it.
Okay. Next question comes from Cobalt Cleaver on Paizo, and he asks, how do you maintain a specific tone, like a serious tone, comedic tone? How do you maintain that within your game?
Really, the best thing you can do is lead by example.
Sure.
If your group is getting just like a little bit too goofy and you want it to be serious, I mean, you can tell your group, hey, let's be a little bit more serious.
Right.
But if you're the one making the jokes half the time, you're going to be setting a bad precedent.
Right.
So if you just lead by example, if you're the serious one, especially if you're the DM, if you're always putting forth a serious game, the group is over time going to have no choice but to abide by that. Similarly speaking, if your players are a bit too fuddy-duddy and a little bit too serious and you want to show them, hey, this can be fun. The point of the game is to have fun. Let's get some jokes in here.
Right.
If you, again, lead by example, I think players can come out of their shell and follow that.
Right. Yeah. You tell jokes or you carry around one of those keychains with the sound effects. To lighten things up. Sorry. To lighten the tone a bit.
Yeah.
Hold on, we're having some connection issues here.
Sorry, guys. Those were not added in post. Those were all.
It was on a.
That was all studio sound.
Sure. But yeah, it's it. Leading by example is a good way to go. Just if you want it to be serious, I feel like going beyond that and being in like stopping people from joking around, like Gabe, stop having fun. Okay, damn it.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, I feel like if the party's joking around too much and it's getting way out of hand, you might be like, okay, all right, let's settle down. Everybody.
Yeah. If it's really getting out of hand, you can feel free to say something about it.
Right, but I mean, like maybe not like every time there's a joke, you don't have to go, hey, no, stop.
You're having too much fun.
Too much fun. Can't do it. Nope. This is D&D. This is serious business. Did you finish leveling up your character, Gabe? I'll take that as a no.
Sorry.
But however you want the game to be, try to just run it that way, and people will eventually follow suit. Like if everyone's joking around, you kind of sit there with a kind of a solemn look on your face. They might kind of be like, oh, okay, let's pay attention. Let's be serious.
Sure.
This next question is from Cethia on Paizo. They ask, for games with variable players, like Pathfinder Societies, Adventures League, or other public forums, should they strive to be suitable for all ages, or have contingencies for when younger players are around?
I think this is kind of self-explanatory. I figure the rules for Pathfinder Societies and Adventures League probably say something about this, but I think that you should always keep in mind the clientele of the public forum that's hosting your game.
Sure.
So if you're at a gaming store where there's going to be people of all ages, you should probably run a game that does cater to all ages, just because you never know who's going to walk into the room.
Right.
If it's a public place, you can't really like demand that only certain people come in and watch or whatever.
Right. I can imagine being a young kid having hey mom, can you please take me to this game store? I really want to go there. And then like you walk into the game room and
or the mom walks into the game room.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, you walk in there with your mom and then overhear somebody saying, "Oh yeah, like I'm gonna cut off the goblin's head and spin in its neck hole or something like that." I don't know.
Horrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like,
I
so suddenly it's like, well, all right, you're never gonna play these games ever again. And
this game is of the devil.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, just like think of it this way: if you were going to host a game, if you were going to be playing a game that your friend was hosting at his house, you would probably want to keep his family in consideration. If his kids are going to be running around, you're probably going to want to, do something that is appropriate for that. If it's at your house, of course, you can do whatever you want. So yeah, just keep in mind the forum that's hosting your game. Of course, maybe if, let's say you're going to be playing a game that's like later hours, like later at night, maybe
D&D after hours.
Thank you, Jeff. Then in that case, maybe you could, do something that's a little bit more mature or whatever. But just common courtesy wherever you're at. Keep in mind what people are going to be, coming and going.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think that will do it for today.
All right.
To submit items and questions, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, or to download the episode, go to interpartyconflict.blogspot.com, where there's a link to our SoundCloud page. Sorry, one small thing about SoundCloud. I just figured out how to customize our SoundCloud address. Before it was soundcloud.com/user 569248872 or whatever. It was just like a big stream of numbers.
Gotcha.
And I just found out how to customize that. So I did. So now it's soundcloud.com/InterPartyConflict.
Nice. Okay.
But unfortunately, that means that all of the links that I've posted no longer work.
Uh-oh.
So I had to go to all of our links on Reddit, and I couldn't edit the links, and I don't know if it would be worth deleting them and then reposting them. So I just went into the comments for each and every one and just posted an updated link.
Sure.
And also on the Facebook group, I can't edit them there, so I just made like one blanket posting. And then from now on, it sucks that all the links are no longer work, but it's good that I figured out how to do it now and not when we have twice as many episodes.
Sure.
So yeah, if you find I don't know how you're listening to this, but if you found a link to a previous episode and you don't know how to find those episodes now, soundcloud.com/InterPartyConflict.
Yeah.
We are also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. And you can find our Facebook page, facebook.com/InterPartyConflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/InterPartyConflict for weekly discussion questions submitted by me. We're also on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and YouTube. Please rate, review, and subscribe, or just tell a friend about it. We really appreciate it. And our music comes from Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. I just recently sent them a Facebook message thanking them for the music. I think it's some really good music.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
So I think that will do it for today. So, Jeff, what do you say?
Oh, God.
Please make me stop.
Stop it. Stop.